Okay, Unit 7, Day 3, more unit circle and trig functions. So define a unit circle that is a circle with center at the origin and a radius of 1. Which is 0, 0, and a radius of 1. So we are going to draw the angle and then convert to radians or degrees. So we have 5 pi over 4. So remember the way that I find my angles is I count. This is 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, which you can also use your unit circle here. And then to convert that, we always go counterclockwise. To convert that to degrees, you're going to multiply that by 180 over pi. Your pi's cancel, and 5/4 times 180, which is what we're doing right here. Sorry, I should have put my work down here. 5/4 times 180 gives you 225. $240. So 240 is, if this is 90, 180, these go in 90. This is 270. It's going to be 30 degrees less than 270, so it's going to be about right there. And then to convert that, you're saying 240 times pi over 180. So 240 divided by 180, and you want to make that a fraction, 4/3, so 4 pi over 3. 300 degrees, so this is 270 here, so that's going to be 30 degrees more than 270, or 60 degrees less than 360. Look at it a bunch of different ways. 300 times pi over 180, you're saying 300 divided by 180, you make that a fraction, is 5 pi over 3. And then 5 pi over 6, so over 6, this is, I have 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, or it's 1 pi over 6 less than pi. So it's about right here. And then 5 pi over 6 times 180 over pi, your pi's cancel out. You're saying 5/6 times 180, and you get 150 degrees. Finding the exact value. Cosine, remember that's your x value. Using your unit circle, and which is listed down here, at 240 degrees, your x value there is going to be -1/2. 5 pi over 4 is right here. Sine is your y value. So my y value at 5 pi over 4 is -√2 over 2. And then sine of 30 degrees, here's 30 degrees. Sine again is your y value. So that's going to be 1/2. Again, we're not worried about tangent or anything other than sine and cosine. So we're not going to worry about that. Now, what quadrants is sine positive? Sine is your y value. So what 2 quadrants is sine positive? This is quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. So sine is positive in quadrants 1 and 2, and it is negative in quadrants 3 and 4. Cosine is positive in quadrants 1 and 4, that's your x values, and it is negative in quadrants 2 and 3. On the back, in which quadrant is sine positive? We just answered those questions. And sine negative, so sine is positive in quadrants 1 and 2, and it is negative in quadrants 3 and 4. Cosine is positive in quadrant 1 and 4, and negative in quadrants 2 and 3. Inverse. So we want to find, this is read inverse. So the cosine to the negative first, like that, is read the inverse cosine. So it's like undoing the cosine. So what this is going to be is your x or y value, depending on whether you're looking at sine or cosine. So we're going to evaluate this in degrees and in radians. So cosine, inverse cosine of negative root 2 over 2, this is the same thing as saying the cosine of theta is equal to negative root 2 over 2. So at what angle is your x value negative root 2 over 2? You're always looking for the angle measure. So using your unit circle, we want to know where is our x value. Negative root 2 over 2. So we're looking, x values negative happens in quadrants 2 and 3. So it's negative root 2 over 2 at 3 pi over 4 and at 5 pi over 4. We want degrees and radians. So since that's our radians, we're going to do our degrees, which is going to be 135 and 225. So we want the x value. So what we wanted here was x equals negative root 2 over 2. Here, sine, we want our y value. So we want to know where is y equal to negative 1/2. Y is negative in quadrants 3 and 4. And it is negative 1/2 at 7 pi over 6 and at 11 pi over 6. Please reference your unit circle from yesterday to find these values. And those angle measures are 210 and 330. Inverse cosine of root 3 over 2, that's where x equals root 3 over 2. X is positive in quadrants 1 and 4. X is root 3 over 2 at pi over 6 and at 11 pi over 6. And those angle measures are 30 degrees and 330 degrees. Sine, again, is your y value. Y is positive in quadrants 1 and 2. This happens at pi over 4 and at 3 pi over 4. And those angle measures are 45 degrees and 135 degrees. Cosine remembers your x value, so we want to know where x is 1/2. X is positive in quadrants 1 and 4. So x is 1/2 at pi over 3 and at 5 pi over 3. And those angle measures are 60 degrees and 300 degrees. Sine, again, is the y value. We want to know where y is negative root 3 over 2. Y is negative in quadrants 3 and 4. That happens at 4 pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3, which are 240 degrees and 300 degrees. And then cosine, that's your x value. Where is x equal to negative root 3 over 2? X is negative in quadrants 2 and quadrants 3. So x is negative root 3 over 2 at 5 pi over 6 and at 7 pi over 6, which are 150 degrees and 210 degrees. I hope that wasn't too bad. If y'all have questions, let me know. Have a great day.